The whiskey burned like a promise broken too soon, and I slammed the empty glass down on the polished oak bar, my vision blurring not just from the liquor but from the sight of him, Elias Kane, my boss, leaning in too close, his breath hot against my ear as he whispered something filthy that made my pulse stutter. "You think you can handle me, Riley?" he slurred, his fingers grazing my thigh under the dim glow of the rooftop lounge lights. And in that moment, with the Seattle skyline mocking us from afar, I nodded like a fool, because saying no had never been an option with him. But when his lips crashed into mine, tasting of bourbon and bad decisions, I didn't pull away. I leaned in, letting the kiss swallow the secret I'd buried for months, that this flirty bastard had been unraveling me since day one. Rain slicked the streets of Capitol Hill like a bad omen, turning the neon signs into smeared halos that flickered against the puddles. I stumbled out of the elevator into my cramped apartment, Elias's arm slung heavy around my shoulders, his laughter echoing too loud in the narrow hallway. "Easy there, partner," he drawled, that Texas twang slipping through his polished Seattle veneer, the one he hid behind in boardrooms but let loose after one too many rounds. My keys jangled in my fumbling hand, and I shoved the door open, the scent of stale coffee and unread manuscripts hitting me like a wave. This was my sanctuary, or what passed for one in a city that chewed up dreamers like me and spat out the bones. Elias kicked the door shut behind us, his loafers leaving wet tracks on the worn hardwood. He was taller than me by a good 4 inches, broad-shouldered in that effortless way that came from years on ranch fences before he traded boots for Brooks Brothers suits. At 32, he carried the weight of old money and newer regrets, his skin sun-kissed from weekends escaping to the San Juan Islands, hazel eyes sharp enough to cut glass. I'd caught myself staring at him across conference tables more times than I cared to admit, watching the way his tie loosened just so during late-night pitches, the faint scar above his lip twitching when he smirked at my ideas. Flirty didn't cover it. Elias Kane was a goddamn force, the kind that pulled you under before you realized you were swimming. Tonight's office happy hour had started innocently enough, a toast to closing the Whitaker deal, glasses clinking in the firm's glass-walled lounge overlooking Elliott Bay. But Elias had zeroed in on me, as he always did, with that predatory charm masked as camaraderie. "Riley Voss, the golden boy of copywriting," he'd said, sliding a drink my way, his knee brushing mine under the high-top table. "You write like you bleed ink. What's your secret?" I'd laughed it off, heat creeping up my neck, but the shots kept coming, and soon we were trading stories about exes who ghosted and cities that broke us. Seattle had been my reset button after a messy breakup in Portland, a chance to bury the part of me that still ached for what I'd lost. At 26, with my olive skin and perpetual 5 o'clock shadow, I blended into the tech bros and baristas, just another queer kid chasing stability in a town that prided itself on rain and reinvention. By midnight, the lounge had emptied and Elias had suggested one more for the road at the Velvet Rope, a dive bar tucked into the shadow of the Space Needle. That's where the whiskey took hold, turning flirtation into friction. His hand on my lower back as we waited for drinks, the way he'd lean in to murmur approvals over my shoulder while I texted friends I never saw anymore. And then in the haze of bodies and bass-thumping indie tracks, he'd pulled me onto the makeshift dance floor, his hips grinding against mine in a rhythm that felt like foreplay. "Your trouble, Voss," he'd growled, lips brushing my jaw. "The best kind." Now in my apartment, he peeled off his soaked button-down, tossing it over the back of my thrift store couch with the nonchalance of a man used to 5-star suites. His chest was dusted with dark hair, tapering to the V of his hips, and I swallowed hard, averting my eyes to the kitchenette where dirty dishes piled like accusations. "You got anything stronger than that rot gut?" he asked, raiding my fridge with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. I shook my head, leaning against the counter to steady myself. The room spun gently, a carousel of poor choices. We collapsed onto the couch, legs tangled in a way that screamed complication. Elias propped his head on his hand, studying me like I was the next campaign pitch. "Tell me something real, Riley. Not the polished shit you feed the clients." His voice was low, laced with that vulnerability he doled out like rare whiskey. "Enough to get you hooked, not enough to sober you up." I hesitated, the alcohol loosening the knots in my chest. "All right. I came out to my folks back in Eugene at 18. Dad walked out the next day. Haven't seen him since. The words hung there, raw and unedited. The kind of confession that usually stayed locked in my journal. Elias's expression softened, his fingers tracing idle patterns on my arm. Mine was worse. Small-town Texas, Bible Belt tight. I was the Golden Sun football star, Daddy's pride. Then they found the letters under my mattress. Mom cried for weeks. Dad, well, he just pretended I didn't exist after that. He chuckled, but it cracked at the edges, a sound like breaking glass. In that shared silence something shifted. His hand cupped my cheek, thumb rough against my stubble, and he kissed me again. Slower this time, less frenzy and more fracture. I melted into it, tasting the salt of unspoken grief, my hands fisting in his hair as if I could anchor us both. We didn't make it to the bedroom. The couch creaked under us, clothes shedding like old skins, his body heavy and insistent against mine. Elias moved with a confidence born of hidden hungers, his mouth mapping paths down my neck, my chest, drawing gasps I couldn't stifle. God, Riley, he murmured against my skin. You feel like coming home. It was poetry in the moment, but later, in the gray light of dawn filtering through my blackout curtains, it felt like a lie. I woke to the sound of him humming in the kitchen, the sizzle of eggs in my cast-iron skillet pulling me from the tangle of sheets. He stood there barefoot, in nothing but his boxers, flipping bacon with a spatula like he'd done it 1,000 times. The sight hit me like a gut punch. Elias Kane, the unflappable creative director who'd once fired a junior for spilling coffee on his desk, domestic as hell in my shoebox apartment. Morning sunshine, he said, plating the food with a wink. Figured you could use some fuel after last night. I sat up, sheet clutched to my waist, my head throbbing in rhythm with my heart. What the hell had we done? Over breakfast, scrambled eggs fluffy with chives he'd scavenged from my windowsill herbs, we pieced it together in awkward fragments. The kiss at the bar. The cab ride back. The blur of hands and heat. It was intense, I managed, poking at my toast. Elias leaned back, coffee mug steaming in his grip, his gaze steady. Yeah, but good intense. Look, Riley, I've been dancing around this for months. The flirting, the late nights. It's not just banter. My fork paused midair. Was this the pitch? The man who charmed clients into million-dollar contracts now selling me on us? Before I could respond, his phone buzzed on the counter. A sleek black slab that screamed importance. He glanced at it, face tightening. Shit. Family call. He stood, pulling on his pants with hurried efficiency. Listen, my sister's wedding is next weekend in Austin. Total circus. Mom's insisting on the whole prodigal son routine. I need a buffer. Someone to play the part. He met my eyes, that hazel glint sharpening. Be my fake boyfriend. Just for the weekend. Keep the questions at bay, throw him off the scent. I laughed, sharp and disbelieving. You're serious? After one drunk night. But even as I said it, the idea wormed in. Escape from my empty weekends. A chance to see Elias unfiltered. Away from the office fluorescent hum. Plus the pay. He dangled a bonus that could cover my rent for months. Think of it as method acting, he added, buttoning his shirt. We sell the story. Hell, we already started. By noon he'd gone, leaving a kiss on my temple and a scribbled itinerary on my fridge. I stared at the paper, heart hammering. Fake. It was just fake. But as I replayed the night, the way he'd whispered my name like a prayer, the tenderness in his touch, I wondered if the line between pretend and real was already blurring. Seattle's rain pattered against the window, a steady drumbeat urging me toward the unknown. What could go wrong? The flight to Austin was a pressure cooker of small talk and stolen glances. Elias had upgraded us to first class. Perks of the expense account, he joked, reclining in leather seats that smelled of new money and old leather. I nursed a ginger ale, stomach twisting not from turbulence but from the ring of truth in his earlier words. It's not just the wedding, he'd confessed over airport coffee, voice pitched low amid the clamor of gates and goodbyes. Mom's been on me about settling down. Thinks I'm still that kid hiding magazines under the bed. And Dad, he's there but not. This buys me time. His jaw clenched, the scar above his lip whitening. I'd nodded, squeezing his hand under the armrest, a gesture that felt too intimate for our script. We landed in the sticky Texas heat, the airport a blast of air-conditioned twang and cowboy hats. Elias's rental was a gleaming black SUV, top down to let the wind whip through our hair as we cruised toward the hill country. "Welcome to my hell," he said, arm draped casual over the seat back, fingers brushing my shoulder. I played along, leaning into it, my head on his thigh when fatigue hit, innocent enough, but the warmth of him seeped through denim, stirring memories of that couch. "You're good at this," he murmured, hand stroking my hair. "Fake suits you." The Cane Ranch sprawled like a fever dream. Acres of rolling limestone hills dotted with live oaks. The main house a sprawling adobe affair with terracotta tiles and wraparound porches. Elias's sister, Tessa, greeted us at the door, all golden curls and bridal glow, her hug engulfing me before I could brace. "So you're the famous Riley. Elias never shuts up about you." She winked, blue eyes twinkling with sibling mischief. Behind her the family milled. Aunts in floral prints, uncles nursing beers, cousins chasing kids across the lawn. And then there were the parents, Margaret Kane, silver-streaked hair in a perfect chignon, her smile as crisp as starched linens. Harlan Kane, broad as a barn door, mustache twitching over a tumbler of scotch. Dinner that night was a spread of brisket and cornbread under strung fairy lights, the air thick with cicada hum and half-heard barbs. Elias introduced me as "my guy Riley from the firm. We've been official for a bit." His hand found my knee under the picnic table, a steadying pressure. Margaret cooed approvals, pressing a cool glass of sweet tea into my palm. A creative soul. Elias needs that. Someone to keep his feet on the ground. Harlan grunted from his end of the table, eyes flicking over me like I was a questionable cut of meat. "West Coast boy, eh? Hope you like it hot." The words landed neutral, but Elias tensed beside me, his thumb circling my kneecap in silent apology. We retreated to the guest cottage after. A cozy bunkhouse with twin beds pushed too close. Elias stripped down to shorts, collapsing with a sigh. Survived round one. I showered off the day's grime, emerging to find him scrolling his phone, face illuminated blue. "Tessa's thrilled. Thinks you're the cure to my eternal bachelorhood." He set it aside, patting the mattress between us. "C'mere. Debrief." I slid in, our legs tangling naturally. The air hummed with unspoken electricity, the kind that had sparked in Seattle but now crackled with proximity. "Your dad's intense," I said, tracing the veins on his forearm. Elias's laugh was bitter. "Intense is code for disappointed. He built this empire, oil leases, cattle runs, expecting me to inherit it all. When I came out at 20, it was like I'd torched the legacy." His voice dipped, raw edges showing. "I fled to Seattle, built my own world. But holidays? They're minefields." I shifted closer, my chest against his back, arm looping his waist. "You're more than that. You're the guy who turns pitches into poetry, who makes a rainy city feel like home." He rolled to face me, eyes searching mine in the lamplight. "And you, Riley Voss? What's your minefield?" The question hung, pulling truths like threads. I told him about Portland Javier, the barista with tattoos like stories, who'd promised forever then vanished with a text. This isn't me. The betrayal still stung, a scar that itched in quiet moments. Elias listened, his breath syncing with mine, until his lips found my temple, soft as absolution. Sleep came fitful, dreams weaving whiskey nights with ranch dust. Morning broke with roosters and the clatter of coffee pots. Elias was up first, brewing ground strong as regret, his hair sleep-tousled. "Today's the rehearsal. Fake it till you make it, right?" We drove into town, Fredericksburg, with its German bakeries and antique shops, hand in hand for the florists and the officiants. Tessa looped her arm through mine, chattering about vows and venues. "Elias looks at you like you're the only star in the sky," she whispered. "Don't break his heart, okay?" I swallowed, nodding, the weight of pretend pressing heavier. At the chapel, a stone beauty amid vineyards, we stood as best man and plus one, Elias's hand warm in mine during the dry run. Harlan watched from a pew, his gaze lingering. Later, over lunch at a roadside taqueria, he cornered us. "Son, a word." Elias paled but followed to the porch. I waited inside, eavesdropping on murmurs, legacy expectations, that lifestyle. When Elias returned, his smile was brittle. Just Dad being Dad. Nothing new. That night, the Bachelorette-Bachelor mashup turned the barn into a honky-tonk haze. Beers flowed, a fiddler wailed, and Elias pulled me into a two-step, his body flush against mine. "You're killing this," he breathed, spinning me under the rafters. Sweat slick and laughing, we stole away to the hayloft, the world narrowing to his mouth on my neck, hands urgent. It wasn't fake then, the urgency, the way he gasped my name like a lifeline. We tumbled into the straw, lost in each other, the ranch fading to echoes. But dawn brought clarity, and with it a text from Tessa. "Mom found your emails, Eli. The old ones. Dinner's gonna be fun." Elias's face drained of color as he read it aloud. "Shit. They know about Seattle, the hookups, the apps. This fake thing. It's blowing up." Panic clawed at me. We'd built a bubble fragile as spun glass. Now cracks spiderwebbed through. "What do we do?" I asked, voice small. He pulled me close, forehead to mine. "We fight for it. Real or not." But as the sun climbed, doubt seeded. What if the only thing real was the lie we'd told ourselves? The dinner bell tolled like a summons to judgment, the long oak table in the great room groaning under platters of fried chicken and pecan pie. Margaret had outdone herself, crystal glasses catching the chandelier's glow, but the air crackled with undercurrents sharper than the silverware. Elias sat rigid beside me, his knee bouncing a Morse code of nerves against mine. I'd changed into a crisp button-down, the one he'd complimented in Seattle, but it felt like armor too thin for the battlefield ahead. Tessa fluttered about, distracting with wedding trivia. But her eyes darted to her brother, worry etching fine lines. Harlan cleared his throat midway through the greens, fork pausing like a gavel. "Elias, Margaret and I been talking." The room hushed, cousins exchanging glances over their sweet tea. Elias's hand found mine under the tablecloth, squeezing hard enough to bruise. "About what, Dad?" His voice was even, but I felt the tremor. Harlan's mustache bristled. "These letters. From back east. Boys' names, hotel receipts. We know you've been struggling." Margaret interjected softly. "We just want what's best, honey. For the family." The betrayal hit like a sucker punch, not from them but from the exposure. Elias's secrets, the ones he digitized and buried, unearthed like bones. His grip tightened, knuckles whitening. "Struggling? Is that what you call living my life?" The words exploded, low but lethal, the table frozen. Tessa gasped, a hand to her mouth. I sat there, the fake boyfriend reduced to spectator, heart hammering as Elias's world fractured live. "Riley's not some prop," he continued, voice rising. "He's real. We're real. And if that's a problem..." Harlan slammed his palm down, rattling the china. "Boy, this ranch, this name, it's bigger than your whims." The slur hung unspoken, but it landed like venom. Margaret teared up, dabbing with a napkin. "Please, Harlan. Not tonight." But the damage bloomed red and raw. Elias shoved back his chair, storming out to the veranda, the screen door banging like a gunshot. I followed, the family stares boring into my back. Pity, judgment, curiosity. Outside, the hill country night wrapped cool arms around us, stars pricking the velvet sky. Elias paced the flagstones, breath ragged. I knew it. Always knew. He kicked at a potted cactus, spine scattering. I caught his arm, pulling him into the shadows of the pergola. "Hey, breathe." My hands framed his face, thumbs wiping the damp from his lashes. "They're scared, Eli. Of losing you." He laughed hollow. "They lost me years ago. Every time they looked away." We sank onto the glider, his head heavy on my shoulder. The confession spilled then, in whispers laced with bourbon from a hidden flask. The first time, the ranch hand at 16, stolen kisses in the tack room, ending in a beating from Harlan's belt. The college flings, anonymous and aching. Seattle as salvation, the firm his fortress. "And you," he said, lifting his head, eyes gleaming wet. "You snuck past the walls. That night. It wasn't the whiskey. It was you." His kiss was desperate, salt-tanged, hands clutching like I'd vanish. I kissed back, pouring reassurance into it, my body arching to meet his urgency. We made love there on the glider, slow and shattering, the ranch's silhouette our witness. Afterward, tangled and spent, he traced my ribs. Stay. After the wedding. Make this real. The words trembled on the edge of hope. I nodded into his neck, but doubt nod, fake to real was a leap, and I jumped from heights before. The wedding dawned golden, the vineyard chapel awash in wildflowers and whispered vows. Tessa radiant in lace, her groom Cole a steady cowboy type with a grin like sunrise. Elias stood tall as best man, his toast a masterpiece of humor masking hurt. To love that defies the odds, bends but doesn't break. Our eyes locked across the aisle, a promise in the pause. Harlan clapped him on the back, gruff but genuine, Margaret's hug lingering. For a breath, the family mended, fractures papered over with cake and champagne. But the reception cracked it open again. Under the tent, as fiddles wailed and boots stomped, Harlan pulled Elias aside near the bar. I hovered, nursing a shiner, catching fragments. Pride's one thing, son. But the board, they whisper. Investors pulling back. Elias's face hardened. Because of who I love? Or who you think I am? Harlan's voice dropped. It's business. And Riley. He's collateral. I stepped in then, heart in my throat. Mr. Kane, with respect, Elias built that firm on his terms. Love's not the liability here. Harlan's eyes narrowed, appraising. And you, boy? What's your stake? Before I could answer, Tessa whisked me away for a dance, but the seed was planted. Betrayal not just familial, but corporate. Elias's world teetering on the edge of exposure. That night, back in the cottage, Elias paced like a caged wolf. He's threatening to pull funding. Leverage the firm against me, coming out publicly. His phone lit with emails, board memos, investor jitters. All because of us. This fake charade turned real, and now it's costing everything. I crossed to him, hands on his chest. Then we go public. Together. Screw the board. He searched my face, fear warring with fire. You do that? Risk your job, your fresh start. For him? Yeah. The man who'd made breakfast from scraps, who'd danced me through minefields. All in, I said, sealing it with a kiss. But as we fell into bed, bodies sinking in frantic rhythm, a text buzzed on my phone, from my own boss back in Seattle, a contact Elias had looped in for team building. Heard about the wedding. Congrats on the promotion tie-in. But watch Kane, he's volatile. Don't get burned. Doubt flickered, a shadow in the afterglow. Was this real or just another pitch? Elias slept, arm heavy across me, but I lay awake, the Texas stars mocking my uncertainty. Love or leverage? The line blurred further, pulling us toward the cliff. The drive back to Austin Bergstrom felt like fleeing a battlefield. The SUV's AC blasting cold against the sweat of confrontation. Elias gripped the wheel white-knuckled, jaw set like flint, the hill country receding in the rearview as if it could erase the ugliness. We'd slipped away post-reception with hasty goodbyes. Tessa's tearful hug, Margaret's stiff peck, Harlan's nod that said more in silence than words. Call when you're settled, she'd murmured, but her eyes pleaded for reconciliation. Now highway hummed beneath us. Radio crooning Willie Nelson laments that twisted the knife. You okay? I ventured, hand tentative on his thigh. He exhaled, long and shaky. Define okay. Dad's holding the purse strings like a noose. One wrong move and the firm's done. The words landed heavy, the bonus he'd dangled now tainted. Back in Seattle our roles reversed, me the subordinate, him the untouchable. But here, stripped bare, he was just Eli, the boy from the barn with dreams bigger than the ranch. We'll figure it, I said, but it rang hollow even to me. The airport bar was our limbo. Overpriced IPAs loosening tongues. Remember that first pitch? Elias asked, foam clinging to his lip. You rewrote the tagline on the fly. Echoes of tomorrow. Saved my ass. I grinned, warmth blooming. You gave me the shot. Flirty boss perks. His laugh was genuine, chasing shadows. But as our flight boarded, his phone vibrated. A voicemail from Harlan, voice gravelly. Think on it, son. Blood's thicker. Elias deleted it without reply, but the weight lingered. Seattle welcomed us with drizzle and the familiar grind. The office a glass hive buzzing post-holiday. Elias summoned me to his corner suite Monday morning. Door clicked shut against prying ears. About the fake thing. he started, perching on the desk's edge. "I ask you. It's not fake anymore. Not for me." His confession hung vulnerable as exposed wire. I crossed the space, hands framing his hips. "Me neither. But your dad. Screw him." The kiss ignited, desk papers scattering like confetti, his body pinning mine in a reclaiming. We were late to the team huddle, disheveled and flushed, whispers rippling. Lunch was takeout in his office, feet tangled under the table, plotting our stand. "We go to the board," he said, sketching on a napkin. "Frame it as strength, diversity sells." I nodded, but unease simmered. My own past ghosts, Javier's abandonment, whispered caution. Midweek, the betrayal struck. I found the memo in my inbox, CC from HR. Interpersonal conflicts, review pending. Attached screenshots, grainy photos from the wedding, us in the hayloft, timestamps damning. Anonymous tip, the email read. My stomach plummeted. Elias burst in minutes later, face ashen. "It's Dad. He had someone tail us." The pieces clicked. Harlan's, watch yourself. The investor whispers. Not just leverage, sabotage. Rage boiled, hot and immediate. He outed us. To protect his legacy. Elias sank into his chair, head in hands. I should have known. Always one step ahead. The office blurred around us, colleagues chatter a mocking drone. I knelt before him, tilting his chin. Then we fight dirtier. Leak it ourselves on our terms. His eyes met mine, fire reigniting. You're all in. Deeper than you know. That night, my apartment became war room. Laptops glowing, takeout boxes fortifying. We drafted the press release. Kane Creative embraces authenticity. Leadership steps out. Photos curated. Us at the market, hands linked. That Seattle breakfast, candid and soft. Elias's voice cracked, reading it aloud. This could tank us. Clients bolting, stocks dipping. I covered his hand. Or it soars. Like us. Submission hit send at 2 a.m. A digital die cast. Sleep evaded, bodies entwined in restless vigil. Dawn brought the storm, phones exploding, emails flooding. Board emergency call. Outrage, ultimatums. Harlan's text. You chose this. Don't come crawling. But amid the chaos, allies emerged. Tessa forwarding supporter notes. Clients praising the bold move. Elias stood at my window, city lights reflecting in his eyes. We did it. Together. Yet victory soured quick. By noon, a rival firm poached our biggest account, citing instability. Whispers traced to Harlan's network, old oil barons with long memories. Elias's facade cracked in the elevator, alone with me. What if I dragged you down? Tears tracked his cheeks, unashamed. I pulled him close, doors dinging open to emptiness. You lifted me. That's the win. Home was solace, but tension simmered. We cooked. Pasta from scratch, his hands floured, mine chopping garlic with precision born of distraction. Over wine, stories surfaced. My mom's quiet acceptance in Eugene, her letters of pride. His mom's hidden apologies, slipped into his suitcase. Laughter mingled with ache. Bodies finding rhythm in the familiar dance. I love you, he whispered post-climax, words slipping unbidden. I froze, heart seizing. Love? The L word, territory uncharted since Javier. Eli. But he kissed it away, hopeful. Too soon. Perfect timing. Friday brought the boardroom showdown, suits starched, air thick with cologne and contempt. Elias presented, voice steady. Slides of surging social metrics, testimonials from queer creators we championed. This isn't risk, it's revolution. I sat flanked, notes trembling. Harlan joined via video, face a thundercloud. Foolish boy. You'll regret. But votes swung narrow, but ours. Cheers erupted, hugs exchanged. Elias's grin was boyish, pulling me into a victory kiss that silenced the room. After rooftop bar, same as that drunk night. Toasts clinked, his arm around me. To us. But as stars pricked the smog, my phone buzzed. Javier's number after years. Saw the news. Proud. Miss you. Ghost from the past, stirring silt. I deleted it, but the ripple lingered. Elias noticed, brow furrowing. Everything. Yeah. Just ghosts. He nodded, but trust's fracture echoed Harlan's. That weekend, we escaped to the islands, San Juan's ferry-slicing Puget Sound. Cabin on Orcas, wood smoke in waves. Days blurred. Hikes through fern-choked trails, his hand in mine. Nights by firelight, bodies mapping new intimacies. "Marry me," he murmured one dawn, ringless but earnest, salt air tangling our hair. Laughter bubbled, too soon, too wild. Ask again in a year. But the seed rooted promise in the soil. Back in Seattle, normalcy fractured further. Anonymous emails, slurs, threats. Go back to Cali. Elias hardened, security cams installed. I woke to nightmares, Harlan's shadow, Javier's smirk. "We're stronger," Elias soothed, but doubt crept, a thief in the night. Love's high wire trembled, and I wondered if we'd fall. October's chill seeped into Seattle like a grudge, leaves turning brittle underfoot as we navigated the fallout. The press release had ignited a firestorm. Features in The Stranger hailing Elias as a queer icon, but counterpieces in conservative trades decrying corporate wokeness. Kane Creative stock dipped then rebounded, buoyed by Gen Z influx and a viral TikTok of our coming out photoshoot. Elias in rolled sleeves, me laughing against his chest, rain slicked and real. But the threats escalated. Slashed tires in the firm lot, my mailbox stuffed with hate-scrawled flyers. "Protect what's yours," they read. A warning laced with menace. Elias insisted on self-defense classes, sparring in a Belltown gym, his punches sharp, mine tentative. "For us," he'd say, spotting me through grapples. Sweat slick, we'd steal kisses in the locker room. Adrenaline fueling urgency. But home brought quieter battles. I'd catch him staring at balance sheets, worry etching lines around his eyes. Harlan circling. He'd admit over late dinners. Quiet divestments, whispers to allies. The betrayal deepened, father against son. Legacy a weapon. My own ghost stirred too. Javier's texts persisted. "Let's talk." I was wrong. Each ping a siren call to old wounds. One night, after a brutal board call where Elias yielded ground on a client pitch, I cracked. What if this is too much? We sat on the balcony of his queen and loft. Upgrade from my shoebox, our merged lives in boxes half unpacked. Rain drummed the awning, city lights a distant constellation. He turned, face shadowed. "Too much for you?" Hurt laced the words, accusation unintended. "No for us." I paced, words tumbling. "Your world's imploding, Eli. And me? I'm the sidekick, the fake turned real, but what if I'm not enough?" He stood, closing the distance, hands gentle on my arms. "Riley, you're the anchor." That night, the drunk blur, it was clarity. You saw me, scars and all. His vulnerability disarmed, pulling confession. I told him about Javier. The coffee shop romance, promises inked in latte art. The ghosting that left me hollow. He made me feel disposable. Like love's a phase. Elias listened, then cupped my face. "I'm not him. This isn't disposable." The kiss grounded me, slow and sure, leading to the bedroom where he worshipped. Tongue tracing insecurities, hands building fortresses. Afterward, tangled in sheets, he proposed again. Half joking with a twist tie ring. "Say yes when you're ready." Laughter eased the knot, but sleep brought dreams of fractures. The climax brewed mid-month. Harlan's ultimatum delivered via courier to the office. A contract buyout, Elias's shares for silence. End the spectacle. It read, signature stark. Elias's roar echoed the halls, crumpling it in fury. He thinks he can erase me? We drove to the ranch unannounced, tires churning gravel, storm clouds gathering like conspirators. The confrontation erupted in the study, Harlan behind his massive desk, ledgers like shields. "Boy, you're destroying everything. You destroyed me first." Elias shouted, veins bulging. The beatings, the denial, now this? For optics. Margaret hovered in the doorway, tears streaming. "Please, Harlan. He's our son." But Harlan stood, unyielding. "And this ranch is our blood. That boy's poison." His glare at me cut deep. "Dragging you into perversion." I stepped forward, voice steel. "Love's not poison, Mr. Kane. It's the antidote." Elias flanked me, hand in mine, a united front. Harlan's face twisted, then crumpled, age and ache showing. I did what I thought right. Protect the name. The admission cracked the dam. Sobs racked him, Margaret rushing to embrace. Elias hesitated, then joined. A huddle of fractured family. Forgiveness? Not yet. But the door cracked open. Driving back, catharsis hung heavy. You were magnificent, Elias said, hand on my knee. Seattle's lights welcomed, but peace shattered at landing. Office burgled, servers wiped, client files gone. Sabotage, fingerprints tracing to a disgruntled ex-employee. But whispers pointed higher. Harlan. Or opportunists scenting blood. Elias's empire teetered, layoffs looming. Despair hit him hard, nights pacing, Scotch his companion. I'd find him at dawn, head bowed over coffee. I can't lose this. It's all I built against him. I'd pull him to bed, body my bomb, but cracks widened. One evening, post-meeting meltdown, he snapped. Maybe the fake was safer. No stakes. The words sliced, reopening wounds. Is that what you want? Back to flirting, no strings. He recoiled, regret instant. God no. Riley, But damage lingered. I crashed at my old place that night, walls closing in. Texts flew, apologies please, but pride held me. Javier called then, voice honeyed. Saw the drama. Need a friend. Weakness tempted. I met him at a Capitol Hill cafe, rain lashing windows. He looked older, tattoos faded, eyes hungry. I fucked up. Let me make it right. His hand covered mine, familiar spark igniting. But it fizzled, Javier's charm now cheap, motives clear. Nostalgia, not redemption. I left, clarity burning. Back to Elias, key turning in his lock. He waited, wrecked. Eyes red, Scotch bottle half empty. Don't, he begged as I entered. I panicked. You're my everything. Confession poured. Fears of inadequacy, echoes of Harlan's disdain. I knelt, mirroring that first vulnerable night. We're enough. Together. The makeup was fierce, sex as reclamation, bodies slamming truths. Dawn found us spent, rings of exhaustion like badges. Rebuild began. Forensic IT chasing ghosts. Tessa flying in for moral support. Her presence lightened, sisterly Barb's late-night talks. He loves you fierce, Riley. Like Dad never could. Harlan's olive branch came tentative. A check for recovery, no strings. Elias tore it up but kept the note. Proud despite myself. Progress inching. Thanksgiving loomed, a test. We hosted small queer friends from the firm, Tessa zooming in. Turkey charred but laughter flowed. Toasts to resilience. Elias's hand in mine under the table, steady. To drunk nights and real mornings. But as pie cooled, my phone lit. Anonymous photo, Elias with a colleague, arms slung casual, timestamp recent. Jealousy flared. Trust's fragile, rebuild quaking. Fake echoes? Or paranoia? I confronted him post-guests, photo thrust forward. His face blanched. Bored schmooze. Nothing. But doubt seeded, a weed in the garden. Love's bloom wilted slightly, shadows lengthening. Winter gripped Seattle like a vice. Holidays twinkling false cheer amid the gloom. The photo festered, a splinter I couldn't extract. Elias's insistence ringing true, but Javier's ghost amplifying insecurities. Weed patched with talks, his reassurances a mantra. Only you. Yet boardroom pressures mounted, late nights pulling him away. My copy desk feeling smaller. One eve post-holiday party I waited up, clock mocking. He stumbled in, tie loose, breath mint mass but eyes guilty. Client dinner. Ran long. The lie tasted bitter. I turned away, bed cold between us. Betrayal brewed not from him but within my own unraveling. Dreams twisted. Harlan's study morphing to Javier's cafe. Elias fading to shadow. I threw myself into work, pitches sharp but solitary. Tessa noticed via call. You're fading, Riley. Talk to him. But pride walled me until New Year's, Elias's surprise. Cabin in the Cascades, snow-draped evergreens our escape. The drive wound silent at first, then cracked open. I've been shit, he admitted, chains rattling on tires. Scared of losing it all, you the firm. I gripped his hand. Me too. That photo. It triggered everything. The cabin glowed hearthwarm, mulled wine steaming. Confessions flowed like the crackling fire. His flirtations Prius, harmless deflections. My fears of disposability rooted deep. You're my home, he vowed. Ring slipping onto my finger. This time silver engraved echoes. Tears mixed with kisses, bodies healing in the loft bed, slow and sacred. Snow fell outside, blanketing doubts. January thawed us, firm stabilized, Harlan's distance a wary peace. We planned. Spring trip to Eugene, my mom's embrace waiting. But climax crested mid-month. Rival firm sued for IP theft, evidence tracing to our breach. Investigation pinned to insider, Elias's old mentee, bitter over promotion pass, Harlan's subtle nudge suspected. Court loomed, headlines savage. Queer power couple's empire crumbles? The storm raged, depositions draining, nights sleepless. Elias broke once in our kitchen, head to counter. I built this for freedom. Now it's chains. I held him, whispering, we'll rebuild. Stronger. Allies rallied. Tessa testifying, clients loyal. But toll mounted, my health faltered, stress ulcers blooming. Elias nursed me, broth and bedside vigils, roles reversed. Can't lose you, he'd murmur, spooning medicine. Trial week was crucible. Courtroom stark, Harlan subpoenaed. His testimony stunned, defending Elias, voice cracking. My son's a fighter. Like me. Absolution, partial but profound. Jury ruled our favor, sabotage exposed, rival sanctioned. Victory parade. Firm party, champagne toasts. Elias pulled me aside, eyes shining. Marry me. For real. On one knee, snowmelt dripping from his coat. Impromptu, perfect. Yes, I breathed, sealing with salt-laced kiss. Spring bloomed, reconciliation. Ranch visit, Harlan's handshake firm, Margaret's pie warm. Your family, she said, hugging tight. Elias and I walked fences, hands linked, past healed. Freedom's here, he said, Texas sun gilding us. Back in Seattle, life layered. Promotions shared, apartment to house, view of the sound, garden for herbs. Yet depth lingered, humanity's mess. Javier's final text. Apology accepted, closure gifted. Elias's scars faded but stories shaped. We volunteered. Youth Center for Queer Kids. Sharing drunk nights turned dawns. Love's not flawless. It's chosen daily. Years on, breakfast's ritual. Elias flipping eggs, me brewing coffee, rings glinting. That flirty boss, fake boyfriend, now husband, anchor. In the quiet I trace his scar. Worth it. He grins, hazel warm. Every blur.